class and political economy have disappeared from American political discourse, or at least policy-oriented discourse, almost entirely, right? And culture is what there is left for us to understand, existing, or the discourse that's available for us to understand uh, um, existing inequalities, right? And in the last, I think that something really big happened, or has happened since 2015, or certainly after the Great Crash, and as levels of economic inequality in the U.S. have become greater, as the society has become more polarized economically since then. The two main languages of response are from the right, what we can summarize as a reactionary nationalism, basically, and from the
So that's what I would often talk about in terms of authoritarian populism, but those terms are
right.
under competition, right? We talk about Donald Trump and so on.
Right, exactly. Like as a rule, and yes, I know you do, and I take that point. I think it's correct. Like, I'm as a rule, I tend to shy away from identifying that as populist, because corporate Democrats what have used the label, right, to apply to Bernie Sanders as well as to Trump, and this is also the way that that consensualist academics in the American Academy, again in the post-war era, tended to talk about the populist insurgency at the end of the 19th century. But yeah, I mean, that's the thing there.
Yeah, so I think it's sort of a little bit, it's a side conversation, I suppose, but it's worth having for a second. I mean,
Sure.
The term populist is that, first of all, it's just in English has the really unfortunate happenstance that it refers to two distinct conceptual things.
That's right.
First is the populist party of the late 19th and early 20th century.
Right.
And the second is a sort of political science concept about a long-standing political science concept, which has its conceptual origins in the
that's right.
About the way in which certain politicians sort of invoke a rhetoric of standing for the whole of the people.
Right, that's right.
Restrictions on the power impossible, right? I mean, the second is, even the people who have the concept in mind that I usually have in mind when I talk about populist and less instrumental concept, often just misapply it in the way that people often misapply the term fascist or the term.
No, that's right.
But there's all kinds of political terms that have negative valence, and then obviously that often invites the temptation of people to just use it in an inappropriate way for people they don't like, right?
Yeah.
So I think the concept of populism is important, is an important one, but I recognize that it's one that's fraught with many with a lot of potential for intellectual error or for political instrumentalization.
Yeah, no, absolutely, man. And by the way, I'm with you 100% on that, right? Like, yeah, I understand what you're right about as populist when you write about it, and I understand what Michael Lind writes about as populist when he writes about it, right? And in a way, like, the one punchline is that people should read more and read more carefully, right? Because words don't have intrinsic meanings, right? So, but anyway, so that's a lapse into pedantry. But yeah, so I mean, that's on the one side. And then on the other side is disparitarianism, right? As a standard of injustice, right? And as you know, I'm sure that this is a notion I've been on the warpath against for quite some time, because there's nothing transformative about correcting or addressing disparities by ascriptive, or based on ascriptive hierarchy, or ideas of ascriptive difference.